Today, we look back at the week's top performing prospects, including prospective 2026 first overall pick, Gavin McKenna.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. My name is Sebastian High. I'm the USHL and crossover scout over at Elite Prospects, and I'm typically joined by Hadi Kalakesh, who may miss the rest of the week due to falling sick to one of those typical autumn bugs that are going around at this time, which is rather unfortunate. But he's able to rest up at the moment, which is good. And I'll be taking over here. And today's show is actually going to be based on an article that he wrote over at Elite Prospects that will be linked in the description down below. Our weekly Rinkside Roundup that is looking back at the top performing prospects from around the hockey world in the last week. And there's some big names in today's article and podcast. Lots to look forward to here today. We're going to look at Gavin McKenna in the first segment, who's just been flying high after a slightly staggering start to the campaign. And then the second segment, we'll look at David Edstrom and Porter Martone, and we'll wrap the show up with two very fun, undersized, and offensively gifted prospects that were drafted in the 5th round last year in the 2024 draft in Clarke Caswell and Justin Poirier. But before we jump into the show, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So let's jump straight into it here with Gavin McKenna, a player that, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably already familiar with. But if you are not, he is a very, very interesting talent who is potentially the next, almost franchise caliber player to be coming out of the draft, and that will be next year. He is a December 20th, 2007 born prospect, if you want to feel old. I know I sure do, and I'm still on the younger side here. But he's 6 feet tall, 165 pounds, as a left shot forward. He can play the wing, but likely with his skill set, he will be a center long term. And he's playing in the WHL with the Medicine Hat Tigers. He's already an assistant captain as a draft -1 player. He already has some fantastic scoring records in the WHL, whether it be 18 points in 16 games as a 15-year-old in the 2022-2023 season. And then last season, he played a full campaign with Medicine Hat where he scored 34 goals and 97 points in 61 games as a D-2. This is a very special talent, and this year he is off to the races in terms of the scoring in the WHL with 9 goals and 29 points through 16 games with Medicine Hat. And this is good for first in the league. He tops the league in points. The next two names are ones that we've also talked about a lot this season already in terms of 2025 draft eligibles. Cameron Schmidt of the Vancouver Giants, the undersized, ultra toolsy, high intensity player with all the skill in the world, is second with 27 points in 15 games. And then with 27 points in 16 games, there's Carter Bear, the nonstop motor that is definitely going to be rising on a whole bunch of boards this season. But let's go back to Gavin McKenna, a player that had a, by his standards, slow start with 8 points in his first 6 games of the season. The big, critique there was just there was a lot of kind of lack of substance in his, finishing touches on plays, a lot of just blind passes into the slot that weren't as calculated as he typically is. This is a rare player who is both definitely a high volume guy, but also a high efficiency player. And that efficiency wasn't overly there in the first week of the season, which is, of course, understandable. First year of the season, you always have to shake off a little bit of rust. But following last year's, especially the U18 tournament for Team Canada, where he would have broken the record in terms of tournament scoring all time at the U18 World Championships were it not for James Higgins. playing even better in the same tournament. Hagen scored 22 points in 7 games, and Gavin McKenna only had 10 goals and 20 points. So still a fantastic tournament, and obviously would have been record-breaking. But yeah, the beginning of the season was a little bit slower, but he has certainly hit his form at this stage. He is going full force for Medicine Hat, and he is tremendously dynamic in transition. This is a player who has elite level puck handling skill, elite level processing speed, and is highly creative. He's able to really just dissect defensive structures. In the article that Hattie wrote, there's also a link to a highlight reel of what he's done so far this season, and it's fantastic. It's something to watch if you want to be entertained for a minute and a half. Definitely something I would recommend checking out if you're not already familiar with Gavin McKenna. If you already are, it's something fun to watch nonetheless. But he's been on fire this season. Just this past week, he scored 4 goals and 9 points in just 3 games. This is a guy who is just so dangerous with the puck on his stick. He's able to just get to the middle of the ice. Despite being a bit on the undersized side, he's such an elite level skater and has the handling ability and the intelligence to evade contact and just like slither his way to dangerous positions both on and off puck. With the puck on his stick in transition, he's able to really build up massive amounts of speed through crossovers. And yeah, he's explosive really as a skater. And there's so much to like, whether it's the smoothness or the dynamism or the pace or the skill. It's all still there, but there's an added layer of refinement and control in his game over the past couple of weeks that we have liked a lot. And yeah, he's still very much the favorite to go first overall next season. The next 2 first overall picks can never be overly clear as D-1 talents or D-2 talents, but with Gavin McKenna and Landon DuPont in 2026 and 2027, you have 2 extremely high-end pieces already that are dominating the WHL, are already among the league's best players that will potentially be the first overall picks in the next 2 drafts. But not this year. I don't think it's going to be a WHLer this year unless Roger McQueen just explodes on return from injury and just dominates everyone. It seems to be, at the moment, a bit of a 3-horse race between Michael Misa, James Hagens, and Porter Martone, who we will talk about again in the next segment. But yeah, Gavin McKenna is a really special talent. That Medicine Hat Tigers team is just loaded for talent, especially when Caden Lindstrom comes back from injury. And there's a lot to like with this player. One thing I would love to see a little bit more, I guess, from Gavin McKenna, if we're going to nitpick here, because it's a high-level talent, there's not that much to nitpick. But I would like to see him defer to simple plays slightly more often, perhaps, to conserve possession. There's still times where he overestimates what he can do and loses the puck, especially like there are some periods where he just goes a bit gung-ho. That said, you do want players of this skill set to be exploring their toolkits. So it's not a bad thing to try lower percentage plays when you are this skilled. I just want to see a bit of a better balance, but he's been finding that over the past weeks, which has been really nice to see. Beyond that, I think that he's probably just the most exciting forward to watch in the entire WHL already. A really fun player that if you get a chance to check him out and you haven't already watched him play, I would highly recommend. He is a player a bit along the lines of a Connor Bedard in terms of how he generates offense on puck. I would say that the shooting is very good with McKenna, probably not the same level as Bedard, but there are some other areas in his game that I think are a bit more refined than Bedard's were in his D-1 season, notably the playmaking and just overall play connecting capabilities. Yeah, a lot to like with this player. He's going to be an exciting talent landing in an NHL organization the summer after next. And yeah, he's been off to a fantastic start. But that wraps up this first segment. In the next one, we will be looking at David Edstrom, who's already been traded twice, despite just being drafted in that 2023 NHL draft by the Vegas Golden Knights, and was shipped over to San Jose in the Thomas Hertl deal, and then subsequently was moved to the Nashville Predators in the Yaroslav Askarov trade, and is really picking up the pace right now in the SHL. So we'll dig into that, as well as Porter Martone, a very exciting player that we've been talking about a lot so far this season, and you will keep hearing us talk and chatter about as the year progresses. But first, a quick word from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you have a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. Whether you want to take those swings on the NFL or on European football, the Champions League is now as well in full throttle, and all the big leagues have more than begun their action, whether it's the Premier League, La Liga, or the Bundesliga. Or maybe you're not a football fan in any capacity, North American or European, and prefer tennis or golf, or, of course, if you're listening to this podcast, perhaps hockey is your sport of choice. Whatever it may be, FanDuel has something to interest every single kind of sports fan. Just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Game Time is the best place to buy cheap and reliable tickets very, very close to when your event is starting. What Game Time specializes in is getting you the best price for your tickets right as the action is on your doorstep. I love to use Game Time, especially because my schedule can shift around quite a decent amount. And when it does and I have an afternoon or an evening free, I can just check Game Time and see if there's a sporting event near me that I'm interested in attending. And that reaches well beyond sports as well. It includes concerts and comedy shows. Whatever you are interested in, whatever you like to do on your days off, Game Time has something to offer you. Right now, Game Time is having an exclusive zone deal for the NHL Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Go to the Game Time app to purchase tickets and get 10% off bleacher seating and 20 to 25% off on home plate area seats. Whether you want to find the cheapest tickets to NHL games, indoors or outdoors, Game Time has everything for you, the fan, to attend your events. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, let's keep the episode rolling here with some talk about David Edstrom, a prospect that has been talked about a lot, considering that he was a 32nd overall pick just over a year ago, because he has been involved in those two aforementioned trades. And him being traded this often is not at all an indicator of a lack of value in the prospect. It really is the opposite. He's been targeted in these trades because he's a very projectable talent. This is likely, in all likelihood, going to be a bottom six center in the NHL, and it won't take him very long to become that. And this past week, he has had some fantastic performances for Frölunda in the SHL, where he started off the season playing inside the top six, playing 16, sometimes 18 minutes a night, and has since seen his time on ice actually rolled back a little bit to more the 14-minute range, playing as the third-line center for Frölunda, which is really where he's been excelling. His actual production has been increasing in that situation where he's playing against competition that isn't just dominating the puck battles. This is a guy who is 6'3", 190 pounds as a left shot centerman, and he fits into Nashville's system so nicely. The Nashville Predators have been constructing a really intelligent team, especially since Barry Trotz took over as general manager. I've loved their drafting philosophy. I like how they're managing their assets. I like that they're also giving chances to more NHL veterans to prove that they're still capable of staying in the league and being impactful players while doing so. But on the youth side of things, they are targeting both high upside, very dynamic players with individual separating tools, whether it be shooting like Matthew Wood, for instance, or mobility like Tanner Molendic. They very much target their prospects for specific things. And David Edstrom is no different, even though he was acquired by a trade in that Askarov deal. This is a player that is going to be a reliable depth centerman for them for a very long time. And so far this season, he's scored 3 goals and 11 points in 13 games in the SHL, which is utterly fantastic production, especially for a player who hasn't even turned 20 yet. He only turns 20 in February. This is still a very young prospect, despite seeming a bit older, considering he's been involved in so many NHL trades. And he sits in 4th in scoring for Linda, and it does so while also having played 3 games less than the trio of players ahead of him in those point standings. And this is a guy who is able to play very reliable defensive minutes, a very intelligent off-puck player. He plays a pretty reserved defensive game. He gets into passing lanes. He sticks to his assignment very well. He's a reliable face-off taker. He's physical. He's never afraid of using his body. In transition, I think the skating is perhaps a bit of a limiting factor. He doesn't have that separation speed as a puck carrier, but he's able to create openings and a bit of time and space for his line mates to enter the offensive zone. And offensively, this is a player that has a really good snapshot, especially. He's dangerous from the bumper position. He's able to play the net front. He gets into passing lanes, gets a stick open, also able to screen goaltenders very effectively. And overall, he loves to create offense. He loves to go for flybys to just like destabilize the defense, confuse the goaltender, and overall, he plays an opposite style of off-puck offense compared to his off-puck defense. His off-puck defense is very composed, very much focused on the primary assignment. He has good scanning habits. Offensively, in a very good way, he tries to exactly target the things that would annoy him the most while he is playing defensively. And that has been very effective for him so far this season. He's not the flashiest player. He's not the most dynamic, but he's very effective. And he's been playing some really good hockey. And I think Predators fans should be very happy to have him in their prospect core. And who knows? Maybe he's already an NHL player this time next season. I would not count it out. Next, we have Porter Martone, who actually features for the first time in this series, the Rinkside Roundup series. He's been fantastic this season. He qualifies for this every single week with his performances. The 6'3", 207-pound right shot right winger from the Brampton Steelheads in the OHL is a whole bunch of fun to watch. This is a player who has 16 goals and 32 points in 14 OHL games so far this season. He's over a goal a game. He's well over 2 points a game, and he's been a dynamic force as the captain of the Steelheads. And yeah, we've talked about him a lot on this podcast for good reason. But this past week, I really liked the one game that he played on Friday night, especially. Our big critique of Martone in terms of critiques going for likely top 3 picks in the NHL draft. It's a bit nitpicky always, but that is our job to nitpick. And with Porter Martone, it is a lack of pace. The skill is so obvious. He's an incredible puck handler, a tremendous playmaker, a wicked goal scorer. The puck skills are really just among the best in this class, bar none. But in that Friday game, what we saw from Martone was a bit more involvement defensively, higher engagement in the defensive zone, and playing with a bit more urgency on puck, which is really nice to see because he can score at low pace without issue in the OHL. He's proven that time and time again this season. That is not a problem at all, and the OHL scoring is going to keep racking up whether or not his pace takes another step or not this season. It's about the projectability of him actually leveraging these skills against pro competition in the NHL, where he projects to be playing very, very soon. This is also a player that has some physical inconsistencies, despite being really big and being able to play very violently, very physically. There's a reason that Corey Perry is our comp at this point, but with better puck skills probably for Martone. That said, there's still a little bit of an inconsistency there. I think a lot of that goes down to that engagement in the pace. He can be a little bit passive at times and just focusing on getting the puck back on his stick to create offense, and can do so without necessarily sprinting down the ice or trying to layer all of his tools together in one cohesive package at his higher speeds. That said, it's been a fantastic week for Martone again. He scored 6 goals and 10 points this past week. And I'm going to be watching him live as well this Friday, which I'm very excited to do. I think that'll be very fun. And we'll definitely be talking about him on the podcast again during next week's episodes as a result of that viewing. And certainly a player that has caught everyone's eyes so far this season and has more than entrenched himself as a top 5 caliber prospect in this draft, and could even go second or even first overall come draft day. He's a very special talent. But that wraps up this second segment. In the next one, we are going to look at 2 very fun undersized scoring players in Clarke Caswell from the Swift Current Broncos in the WHL, as well as Justin Poirier of the Baie-Comeau Dracars in the QMJHL. But first, a quick message from our sponsors. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the middle of a game and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's wrap up the show here by talking first and foremost about Clarke Caswell, an undersized playmaking winger that I liked a lot in last year's draft and was nabbed by the Seattle Kraken in the 5th round at 141st overall. I thought that he was definitely at least a 3rd-round talent, potentially a 2nd-round talent. A really, really deft and intelligent playmaking forward with good two-way intensity, despite just being 5'11", 181, and he plays a bit smaller than that frame. The physical tools are definitely an area of critique in terms of his NHL projection. He has been on fire so far this season. He's one-upped himself already from last year's production, where he scored 26 goals and 77 points through 68 games with Swift Current. This season, he has been the team's captain, and through 14 games, he has 5 goals and 24 points. He has been one of the top assisters in the entire WHL so far this season, and just a very intelligent player. He takes really good routes in transition. He plays off his teammates very well, and he's a fantastic play connector. He doesn't create every single play. A lot of his assists are secondary. He's not necessarily the player that puts the finishing touch on every single offensive sequence, but every high-end offensive sequence flows through him. He's a very important conductor of play, especially in transition and the offensive zone. He's not a player that's going to be a fantastic puck retriever or a net front presence or making his NHL money by being a physical dynamo by any means, but he's able to drive play, especially from a middle of the lineup role in terms of NHL projection. Think of him potentially as a 3rd-line play-driving winger who loves to carry up the puck the ice and uses his passing ability not only to create in the offensive zone, but also to stretch defenses in transition. He likes his cross-ice passes on the rush to switch the angle of attack very quickly. He's deceptive deceptive with the puck on his stick. He's a good puck handler. There's a lot to like with this player, but he's going to have to double down on that play driving ability in order to project as an impactful NHLer. He might be able to make his money as a fourth liner if he is not able to take that step, but the lack of physicality is always going to be a point against him in that facet. But as a support player, as a play conductor, as a play driver from the wing, there's definitely a lot to like with Clarke Caswell, who played a very, very good week for Swift Current with 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. And he continues to be very fun to watch. That's always been one of the things with Clarke Caswell. He's very entertaining. He loves to create. He has some flashy sequences in him, and he doesn't give up on plays. There's a lot to like here. Another guy who kind of fits into a similar category in terms of a combination of never give up attitude and undersized stature is Justin Poirier, who was picked in the 5th round as well in last year's draft at 156th overall by the Carolina Hurricanes. And he's a 5'8", 183-pound right shot right winger who scores a lot of goals. This is a QMJHL player who's playing with Baie-Comeau. And last season, he was, in my opinion, the best QMJHL prospect available. He was a borderline first-round talent in my eyes. He scored 51 goals, 82 points in 68 games, and played even better in the postseason with 18 goals and 27 points in just 17 games. It was a really, really standout performance, and he's just picked up where he left off last season. Through 15 games, he's over a goal a game with 16 goals and has 28 points. This is a player who, yes, has a ridiculously good shot. The mechanics on the shot are fantastic. He's able to generate a lot of power, a lot of accuracy. He's a danger to score from medium range. But beyond that, there's a real desire for violence in his game. That's something I really appreciate and really think helps his NHL projection as well. He is a really good board battler. He's not big, but he uses leverage mechanics to his advantage, gets underneath opponents, and is so tenacious. The never give up attitude that Clarke Caswell has is tripled by Justin Poirier. It's a real facet of his game that he is just tenacious. He's a buzzsaw. He gets involved physically. He plays nasty, dirty hockey at times in the gritty areas. He's not a player that needs to be in space all the time. He likes to get in on the action. He can initiate contact, and sure, he's not very big and get pushed off the puck at times. That's always going to happen with smaller players like this. But the fact that he has a surrounding toolkit to compensate for that lack in vertical stature is already quite developed, and the goal scoring is dynamic. He's had a really good connection with Matthias Milofsky, a New Jersey Devils draft pick this season, and just this past week, Poirier had 12 points in 3 games. He is averaging 4 points a game this week, and Milofsky was also along those lines. And while Justin Poirier isn't a particularly good skater, if he doubles down on the goal scoring and develops that to as good a tool as it could possibly get to, as well as that intensity, I see an NHL future for this player. And I think Carolina grabbed another fantastic talent here with a late draft pick in the 5th round. In terms of pure ability, offensive creation, and skill, this was a first-round caliber player, but he fell because he's small, and Quebec League always going to be a bit of a question mark in terms of production coming from players of this profile. But the combination of tenacity with that goal scoring is something that I think will really help him on his road to the NHL. He can be a violent forechecker. His off-puck sense is a real cornerstone of his game, and that's important. He's able to get open. He can score when he has even a little bit of space to work with, and he also scores a lot of his goals from in tight, which you want to see from a player with this profile. But that wraps up this show. I hope that you really enjoyed. Please leave us a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Let us know what you thought about the episode and what you want us to talk about next. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please make sure to leave us a rate and review, and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. We always appreciate our everydayers. And for your second listen of the day, you can head on over to Locked On Sports Today, a 24-hour news show that covers everything going on in the sporting world I could possibly want to keep up with. My name is Sebastian High, USHL scout over at Elite Prospect, and typically joined by Hattie Kalakesh, and you've been listening to Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope that you're back very, very soon.